So I got a text from my dad on Sunday night saying, "Hey, Phil Mickelson, he's a big golf fan, just became the oldest player at the age of 50 to ever win a major golf tournament." And he said he attributed his success to starting a meditation practice to help him keep his focus as he aged, and actually keep getting better as a golfer. And here's what Mickelson actually said about it when he was interviewed. He said, "I'm working on it. I'm making more and more progress just by trying to elongate my focus. I might try to play 36, 45 holes in a day and try to focus on each shot." Interesting. Playing longer, but focusing on each shot so that when I go out and play 18, it doesn't feel like it's that much. I might try to elongate the time that I end up meditating, trying to use my mind like a muscle and just expand it, because as I've gotten older, it's been more difficult for me to maintain a sharp focus, a good visualization, and to see the shot. That's how Phil Mickelson talked about it. Elongating his practice, elongating his focus, while still paying attention to each and every shot, that kind of Zen-like focus and calm. Another Phil that comes to mind that some of you might be familiar with that sort of oozed this same sort of high level of success under high pressure situation is Phil Jackson, the famous coach of the Chicago Bulls in the 1990s when they won two three-peats, 6 national championships within that decades of the 1990s. And of course, he was famous for his Zen practice and teaching some of those Zen practices to his players like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, and all the egos on that team that he was helping them come together. Another example of a highly successful person who really kind of had that Zen-like focus on the details is John Wooden. He won 10 national NCAA basketball championships as the coach of UCLA's basketball infamous program. And you know what he was really famous for? On the first day of practice, he would teach his players how to roll up their socks without getting a bunch in their socks so they wouldn't get blisters. And his lesson was that when you focus on those small little details and you do it with purpose and intention, that the big wins and the big things come. So what can we learn from the Phils, from Phil Mickelson, Phil Jackson, and even from John Wooden? Well, a couple of things, but what I want to focus on today is that there's a paradox in what they did. They were fully committed and focused. They were connected to an inner sense of purpose and love. So that could be their love for the game. Phil Mickelson in that same interview talked about that he just focused on his love for golf, not as much about the outcomes. So love of the game, love of, maybe for you it's love of your work, love of others and service. And at the same time, they were totally detached from the outcomes. And that's a paradox, right? It's a challenge. The paradox is that this actually makes it so much more likely to win, and I put win in quotes, and I'll explain why in a second, or to get the outcomes that you really want. So being fully committed and focused, connected to purpose and love, while being totally detached from the outcomes. Now, why is this such a powerful recipe for getting the outcomes that you want? Paradoxically, because you would think, well, if I'm detached from those outcomes, how am I going to get them? So I want to go a couple layers into why this is true, that we can learn from those who have been successful and who have integrated their centering or meditation practice into what they do. The biggest reason I think that this is so helpful is because we become our biggest obstacles. Or more accurately, I think we would say, our own egos and its attachments to winning or succeeding become the biggest obstacle. So that's why I put winning in air quotes before, because the more attached we get to it, paradoxically, the less likely we are to get the outcomes that we want. Now we can actually keep going deeper here. Why would I say that you or ourselves or our own attachment to the outcomes or our ego becomes the biggest obstacle to our success? Now, one of the reasons, I think there are a lot, but one of the reasons is because if you've ever aimed for a big goal, you know that failure is inevitable. You're not going to get there on the first try, or maybe you get lucky once, but if you keep pushing yourself like that, you're going to fail a lot. When I was doing a lot of rock climbing, we used to say, if you're not flying, you're not trying. In other words, if you're not falling and letting the rope and your partner catch you, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. But the challenge is then when you have those failures, the ego gets so attached to needing to win that it makes you lose focus. You start to get frustrated. You start to worry. And as I've heard many people say recently, worry is like praying for the result that you don't actually want. So, how do you overcome that? With a daily centering practice, you gradually and gently learn to let go of the ego and its attachments to winning or to what it perceives as winning. And as you do that, you also start to notice these subtle and kind of almost like tricky ways that the ego traps you into getting caught up in worry and fear, anxiety, and worst of all, comparing yourself to other people, because then you lose touch with that inner sense of love and purpose. In 12-step recovery, we sometimes talk about this as cunning, baffling, and strange. It's cunning, baffling, and strange the way our ego gets in our own way and undercuts the very things that we want. Now, with a daily centering practice, you start to let go of the ego. You start to center in to a power greater than yourself, and to that power where you connect with that power greater than yourself deep in your heart center. We call that God, we call it a higher power, we call it universal intelligence. People have different ways of thinking about it. Maybe we call it grace. Now, as you do this, as you learn to gradually let go and gently let go of the ego and place your trust into something bigger than yourself, you build up trust and confidence. If you break down the word confidence, confidence literally means doing something with faith. Faith in your own inner skills, but faith in something bigger than yourself that's guiding. Now, when you do that and you build up that faith and confidence and you let go of the ego, what happens? Well, you start to relax. You start to relax your muscles. You relax your thoughts. You start to enjoy what you're doing. You start to get in touch with that inner love, and you're connected to that love for what you do. It's a love for maybe the activity that you do, if it's golf or basketball, or if it's your work or your career. It's also love for yourself. Can't skip that one. That's a tough one. How do we let that sink in? It's also love for others and the people that you serve. And guess what? When you do that, when you relax and you tune into that love and purpose, you end up giving your best. And that's why it leads to better outcomes, paradoxically, because you're not as attached to the outcomes. Outcomes like winning a major tournament at the age of 50 and becoming the oldest person ever to do it, like Phil Mickelson. Outcomes like 2 3-peats and 6 NBA championships, like Phil Jackson did with the Chicago Bulls in the 1990s, or 10 NCAA national championships like John Wooden did with the UCLA Bruins over his career in college basketball. Now, when we break it down like this in a talk, it sounds easy and simple, and it is kind of simple when it all lines up, but as you know, it's not easy. It's not easy to have a failure and then keep coming back and be detached from the outcome and still love yourself and love what you're doing. In the Eastern traditions, they sometimes call the ego the 1,000-headed dragon. You cut off one head, you surrender the ego one time, and there's always another to come back. And that's why this is a lifelong practice. Why centering prayer and meditation and centering for wisdom is a lifelong practice, and we're always beginners. There are moments of growth and insight, and it's really fun to connect with people when they have them, or to celebrate winning a big championship or something. But the fact is, we're always beginners, myself included. That's why I offer everything that I do. It's really because I've been connected to that love of my own practice and scholarship and research and learning from my own lessons, mostly from failures. It's that love of wanting to share that fruits of my practice with you, and to share the wisdom that I've gained from my own teachers. That's why I do everything that I do here. So if you want to explore how you can go deeper into a centering practice, connect with that inner commitment, that focus, purpose, and love while staying detached from the outcomes and entrusting it all to God or a power greater than yourself, then I want to invite you to book your free breakthrough session right now. So you can do that by going to thomasjbushlack.com/apply. It's thomasjbushlack.com/apply, and I will put it in the chat box. I forgot to pull it up ahead of time, but I will put it in there. thomasjbushlack.com/apply. We'll get on a call. We'll discuss where you're at in your practice, where you want to go deeper, come up with a plan to get there, and if I can help you, I will totally help you with that, and if not, I will look for other resources that can. All right, so if you are feeling that call to something deeper, I look forward to talking with you soon, and in the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.